The other type of qualitative data collection is observations. Observations observe the behaviours and they're being recorded by a researcher on a participant. There are two types of observation: participant observation and non-participant observation. So observation is a researcher observing behaviour of participants and recording what they see. It should be done in a natural environment or setting for the participant so they can naturally do what they're meant to be doing and not have any change on what they are doing. So for example, in gymnastics, and the observer should observe the gymnast within their natural environment in their gym, so that they can get the observer can get their full answers and the test be more valid and reliable. No manipulation, it should be descriptive only. So participant observation, the researcher is actively involved with the topic they're researching. So if the researcher is studying a gymnastics group and how, flexibility improves their overall range of movement on all apparatus, and these gymnasts had a specific PNF stretching routine they had to do every session, the researcher would have to join in the session and try this PNF stretching program to see if the topic the researcher is actually researching is true, and they have to try and get the best answers they can out of it. So the researcher may go into a gymnastics session and test what they're testing, and the researcher will go into this session and make sure that the gymnasts don't know that they're being observed. So it's like a new person's coming to their training session. The data would then be recorded from their field notes within the session, with the gymnast's own thoughts and feelings and emotional experience. So the gymnast might give their feelings on how this stretching actually helps and if the stretching is quite painful or not. And this method is useful when trying to discover the more delicate aspects of group behaviour and not being known that they're being assessed. Non-participant observation is the opposite. So the observation involves a researcher observing their topic or participant from the side. So for example, the researcher may be researching deal with pressure in a competition situation. So this researcher may have to go to a competition and stand within the arena and observe one or their participants on how they're dealing with their pressure, with their emotions and their feelings. It involves the research observing from the outside. There's no interaction between the participant and the researcher, whereas in participant observation there is. But the participant may know that they're being observed, so they might change their opinions and how they deal with this pressure to please the researcher, to maybe make their research more better, and it could lead to being more biased. So within observation there's ethical issues such as privacy, so they need the consent from the participants, and if they're under 18, from their parents, to take part in this observation, and unless the situation would naturally provoke observation, they still have the right for the information about confidentiality. So within confidentiality and consent, if undisclosed and non-public setting must be consent. So the researcher must have consent to be able to take part in this session and consent to observe the participants. There's also use of data findings, which could potentially lead to social sensitivity because of the use of their findings. But within observation, there's reliability. So, how reliable is the test? So, this means that within observation, it might be difficult to replicate. The confounding variables, so the researcher will not be able to control them. Into research reliability, and good coding can increase the reliability. So if the researcher could use shapes or letters or numbers to write down their research that they'll understand, which could give them better reliability. Within validity, if the participants know there's low validity because they know they're being observed, so they might change their behaviours, so they might not measure what it's meant to. An observer bias could lead to low validity because they might want to please the researcher. The advantages of observation is that it's immediate, so it happens in the moment, is quite quickly. Most of the time, it's quite valid, ecological validity, and it happens in real life, natural settings. So the participants do what they naturally do within a training session or a competition. There's also a lot of detailed notes because they're writing down everything they see, and then there is research. So this means that the researcher identifies the behaviours and further researches their topic. So it gives them more validity and more answers they need. The disadvantage is it could be there could be an effect of the observer, which could lead to the behaviours and the way that these participants act being biased, so they might want to impress the researcher or change how they feel. And this could lead to the Hawthorne effect, where participants act differently as they know they're being watched, so this affects the overall validity. Another disadvantage is demand characteristics, so the subjects may try to please the researcher, and the coding system, so the data they get may be limited and influence interpretations, and it may be difficult to fit into categories that the observers put them into to better research their topic.